Hey, wonderful people! Grace of Fiery Raptor Creative here, and today we are going to be designing a new OC with dice. I recently saw several other artists on YouTube doing this, designing D&D characters or new OCs with dice, and I think that idea is super cool. But while I love a little bit of randomness, I find that many of the OC challenges online don't really have the options I want to choose from. Which means that I might have designed an entire OC generator by myself. So yeah, I specifically want any OCs I generate to be able to exist in a yet unnamed fantasy world that I'm writing in. So I specifically chose the trait list to fit within that world's limits. That said, I will be putting the lists I am rolling from and my dice rolls up, so if you want to use the generator I've created, you can too. So here's the lists I have to choose from. There's 12 lists in total. Most of them are 20 options. Some are only 6, so I'll need a d6 and a d20. We are going to start with age, which only has 6 options. We roll for age. That's 3, responsible adult. I forgot I wrote that option. Now, clothing style is number 2, and I roll a 2. Kimono. Now, since kimono is a Japanese cultural garment, what I'll probably do is have the clothing be inspired by kimono design, rather than trying to recreate something that's specifically tied to a real-world Earth culture, since this is a fantasy world that we're dealing with here. Hair, which is also a d6. 5. Long hair. Now we go to object of sentiment. I personally love this option because it suggests a story for the character. And that was one of the details I noticed with a lot of other OC challenges, is they had a lot of visual choices, even down to specific eye shapes and stuff. But they had very little in terms of prompting a story, which for me is part of the whole motivation to draw a character. I want to know who they are, and drawing them is part of that discovery process. Now I roll, and our result is 19. Flask or potion. Interesting. Next is occupation or background. Scavenger. Okay. Physical trait. This means a defining feature of theirs. In my head, it's like what a total stranger would notice about them first. 4. Loss of limb. How does a responsible adult lose a limb? Maybe the lost limb is why they're responsible now? I'm already getting thoughts, folks. On to primary color. This is to inform the color palette, but it might also choose randomly from my Pinterest board of color palettes. I'm not quite sure there. I am trying to get better at choosing and being creative with color palettes instead of endlessly choosing to paint just my favorite 3 colors. Black. Okay, I think I'm going to choose a color palette for my Pinterest board. We'll go with this like purple and black and blue one. I like that. Shape language. This is to inform the shapes in the character design. Usually certain shapes are used to communicate certain traits in character design, like a square character often comes off as dependable and steady, or stubborn and set in their ways on the negative side, while a round character is often bubbly and friendly. Our result is spirals or swirls. Pretty cool. Now we go on to skin tone. I have a brown gradient as best as I could, with some rainbow options thrown in at the end. And I got purple. Okay, purple and black. That matches the color palette I picked earlier, but that's also getting outside my comfort zone a little, which is super cool. Species. Now usually at this point, I'd have some idea of what species I want this person to be, so I won't always take the result I roll. However, this time around, I got no clue what this person is. So, let's see. I got 18. Wilderborn. Okay. Wilderborn are a custom race that I've designed for my fantasy world, or a custom tribe. They're basically a mixture of dryad and fairy. I like both of those elements, but I wanted to create a people that is sort of combines both of those traits. So that's what they kind of are. They look more like fairies, but they kind of have the magical powers of dryads and stuff. Anyway, visual twist is our next list. This is an element to shake things up and avoid a cliche design. So I got 4, which is crystal. Goes with Wilderborn pretty well. And finally, their weapon. 11. Warhammer. That is going to throw a wrench in this, which is awesome. Alright, so on to our actual process. I went through a few different thumbnails trying to decide on a pose. This was more difficult than I expected because of the hammer combined with the Wilderborn trait. So the hammer kind of grounds the image, adds some weight to it, some dynamicness. But Wilderborn are supposed to be light and floaty and, reminiscent of like vines and fairies and that kind of thing. So that is definitely going to be an interesting combination to deal with. And I was struggling with that with the thumbnails. Also, since one of this character's features is that she's lost a limb or two, I also wanted her pose to be able to show that without hiding the effective limb behind like her body or her wings, since that's an important part of this character. Also, I said she, so yeah, I'm choosing for this character to be a female character. I think that is where I want to go with this drawing. So, my husband suggested that I have her be a wingless Wilderborn, like she lost her wings in a fight or something, which is a really cool idea, but I already decided she was missing her left arm and leg, so I stuck to that plan. To incorporate the crystal elements, I decided to have her hammer be made of crystal, as well as the flask or potion vial that she has, which I ended up hanging around her neck. The vial detail I didn't end up doing very much with, honestly. It's present, but I wish there was more of a story there than I have right now. I decided to have her left leg have a crystal and porcelain looking prosthetic, which I kind of wanted to make look like armor. But I admit I took some inspiration from the robot limbs of the movie design for Alita Battle Angel. Her hands and feet in that movie have this porcelain look to them as well, and I thought that was super cool. I think that this Wilderborn's leg has some robotic functionality, because of the crystal dust, sort of suspended like a lava lamp in the leg and the calf chambers. Maybe the vial around her neck allows her to connect with the crystal dust so she can move the prosthetic. I don't know. Just throwing out some ideas. For her clothing, I decided to just do a vaguely kimono-looking design with some cool sleeves and a back opening for her wings. I've been trying to add more patterns and embroidery onto my character's clothing recently, so I added some swirly bits to incorporate that shape language and to add some interest to her clothes. It's not a lot, but it is something. Wilderborn hair to me are sort of a mixture between hair and leaves, because Wilderborn actually photosynthesize with their hair. That's how they get part of their nutrients. So they're afraid of the dark too, and they have this symbiotic relationship with a species of dragon in my world that have scales that are solar-powered lamps. So the dragons bask in the sun during the day, and then during the night their scales glow this warm orangey yellow color. So the Wilderborn collect the discarded scales, and then they use them like solar lamps, and it allows them to survive the winter in climates that are more affected by the seasons and have less sunlight in the winter. This Wilderborn's hair I decided was like a blue spruce kind of thing, so blue leaves and maybe some white crystals or berries scattered throughout. I think her hair could have been rendered and defined better, but I liked the galaxy effect I ended up with. I originally wasn't going to add a background to her, but I want to start improving my background skills, so I sort of implied a cherry blossom or redbud tree sort of situation in the background there. I also wanted to establish the scale, since Wilderborn are hobbit sized, so they're only about 3-ish feet tall. I think in the end I created a piece that I'm pretty proud of, even though I haven't come up with a story for her. In my head, she definitely fits the warrior or soldier kind of archetype. Maybe she used to be a soldier, and after whatever situation took her arm and leg, she's been removed from active duty, but is totally the type to get into a fight if someone really needed help. I want to thank you all for coming along today for this piece. I had a lot of fun making it, and I wish all of you wonderful people a great day.